In this video we're going to show VoIP.Master in PBX trunking emulation mode. In this mode of operation, VoIP.Master can look like a VoIP PBX or a VoIP device connected via a SIP trunk VoIP trunk to the VoIP network. This mode of operation is used by engineers and technicians to install and commission SIP trunks to make sure they're operational and working to agreed SLAs. As this diagram shows, VoIP.Master on the left hand side here will be placed in the customer premise and connected to a router and to the SIP trunk into the network. In this mode of operation we can make outgoing calls, we can accept incoming calls, and we can check the voice quality of those calls that we make. So we're going to go to the VoIP.Master main application screen, and on the front screen here you'll see that there are a number of boxes. Each of these boxes is a different emulation mode. Now I'm going to use PBX trunking emulation mode because we're going to be emulating a PBX VoIP device towards the network. Now these displays or these icons with names underneath, these are pre-configured profiles. Now you can save profiles once you've configured VoIP.Master. You can save profiles, you can have as many profiles as you want. So for the moment we're just going to select one of these profiles. It doesn't really matter which one because we're going to be changing the configuration anyway. When you select a profile, it takes you into the workspace. This is the area where all the calls are made or received, and you can see all the call statistics. Now once this is loaded, we're going to hit the configure screen, which takes us into the configuration menus. Now the first thing you're probably going to want to change is the network configuration, so we hit the network configuration tab. This is where we can change or control the Ethernet port. So we can say we're going to be using a DHCP server and get an IP address assigned to us, or we can say manual and use the fixed IP address, in which case we put the details here. Now in this example we're connected to a network with DHCP server, so we're going to leave that the same. Next thing we want to go to is the trunk settings, and the first parameter we need to change or set is the ITSP address, the Internet Telephony Service Provider address or the SIP server address. Now in this case the SIP server we're going to be connecting to is at 192.168.1.113. Now that's a good point there. What we've seen here is it's highlighted it in pink, red. It shows us we've got an error in that entry, and actually I can see the error there is because I've got a comma rather than a dot. So I change that, and I've still got an error. So I change that. Here we go. So I've been using commas rather than dots. So 192.168.1.113. Now the rest of the fields here are pretty standard. We don't necessarily need to change them, but we are connecting to a server which requires registration. So we need to go into the Registration Authorization tab. The first thing we're going to enter is the username. Now this is normally a number, or it can be a string. In this case, it's just a very simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now go enter the authentication name, which can sometimes be a bit more complex, and we're going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at ims.org. Then we're going to enter the password. Now all these credentials are normally provided to you by the service provider. Then we need to tick on registration because we want to use registration. We need to set the registration timer, which is going to be 30 seconds. And the registration port, which in this case is 5060. Now at this point really we don't have to do a lot else. We've set the server address, the SIP server address that we're going to register to, and we've set our username, authentication name and password. However, we are going to just make a quick change to the test settings. This is the types of calls that we want to make once the VoIP.Master is registered. At the moment it's set for single call. Now we always recommend starting with a single call because there is no point in trying to make multiple calls if you can't register with the network and even make one call. So we always say start with a single call first, but rather have the operation on connection to loop, which is just going to loop the RTP. We're going to say headset, which will use the internal microphone and speaker of the laptop computer. Now the other thing we probably need to change here, one other thing, is the called number. The number we're going to actually make a call to. Now just going to click on that, double click, and you'll see there's now a cursor. I'm just going to backspace, and I'm just going to enter a fairly generic number here, which is going to call the other end. And I need to hit enter to make sure that that number is accepted. So I've hit enter and now it's accepted. So now we're ready to go. If we hit OK, now all those parameters are stored in VoIP.Master, but I may want to save that profile just in case I want to use it again, recall it in future. So I'm just going to say save, and I'm just going to call this simply VoIP.Master Test 1. And I'm going to save that profile, and now you can see at the top here it's changed the title. We've now saved that profile, and I can use that in future, recall it. It means I don't have to enter all those parameters again. So now I'm going to start the workspace by clicking on Start. It now starts up the protocol stacks underneath. And because we set registration, VoIP.Master should now attempt to register the far end. Now you see it's red at the moment because it hasn't registered with the device at the far end, but now we can see that's changed to green, and the registration status here in the trace window has changed to registered. So we're now registered with the far end. Before we were registered, these buttons here, the call buttons, were greyed out. We couldn't make any calls until we were registered, but now we've registered, we can make a call. So if I hit the call button.
This is an automated message from VoIP.Master. If you would like VoIP.Master to send a continuous message, press 1.
Okay, I'm just going to hit the hang up button there, but you hopefully heard that VoIP.Master had made a call to the other end, which was an automated message, and we could hear that in the laptop speaker, and we could have speak to the other end as well. So we now have a profile that works, that allows us to register and make a call. So once we've reached this point, it is quite easy to stop the workspace, to go into the configuration tab, and now we can start to change our test settings and do more advanced tests if we wanted to. So for example, very quickly we could say, okay, we want to do a sequential call, we want to send a WAV file or send a message for every call we make. And just for this example, I'm just going to do 5 calls with a space of 50 milliseconds between each call. If I just select OK, now you'll see that I've got 5 terminals going green. That means we've got 5 terminals set to make outgoing calls. I'm going to hit the start button again to start the workspace, and very simply wait for registration. Once again, we've got no registration, now we're registered, so I can now select the call button. Boom, and I've got 5 calls going out and running simultaneously. Now for these calls we will get a real-time indication of the MOS score shown in the middle of the terminals here in the green, and if we select any of these terminals we get the statistics for that particular terminal. So I just keep clicking it, you'll see it rolls around the transmit stats, the receive stats, and what we call the outgoing call stats, and I can do that for any terminal. Now the useful thing here is that when I click on any of these terminals, not only do I get the statistics for that particular terminal, but it also filters the system trace, so I only get activity for that particular terminal. If I click on the cloud, I get all activity for all terminals, and I get global call stats for all the terminals. So I'm just going to quickly stop this workspace. I'm just going to show you one other thing very quickly. I'm just going to exit the workspace, come out of it. Now we saved that registration, or we saved that configuration, should I say. And if I want to make that one of my favorites so that I can use it in future, all I need to do is click not the actual icon, because I click the icon, that is the profile that will then get loaded and take me into the workspace. I'm going to click the name below the icon, and it'll open up the directory where all the profiles are stored. And I can just select the profile that I want to be one of my favorites, in this case the one I just created, VoIP.Master-Test 1. I say choose this profile, and that now becomes one of my favorites, which means that I can very quickly in future just load that. For example, I'm just going to click that button now. It loads that profile, configures everything including the Ethernet interface, so everything in VoIP.Master is configured. I can then just hit the start button to start the workspace, and it should hopefully now register with the far end. There we go.
This is an automated message from VoIP.Master.
Just going to clear that call. As you can see, in 3 simple clicks, I can be running a test.